practice take number one. Okay, so this is my practice for being on YouTube and talking about some of my personal experiences that I've had with psychological issues. I have been diagnosed with everything from borderline personality disorder to bipolar to attention deficit disorder, and sometimes all three. So as I've always been interested in psychology, having a biological mother who was diagnosed with schizophrenia at the age of 18, I have done some exploring of my own because even though I believe that people who have degrees in psychological matters, such as therapists, um, psychologists, um, doctorates, anything of that nature, I believe that they can help us and give us an idea of what we need to do to change those things. But I also believe that we know ourselves better than anyone else. And sometimes that may be hidden in our subconscious. Sometimes, people don't seem very in touch with themselves because they don't acknowledge, at least out loud, um, some of their own flaws, some of their more negative aspects of their character. And if we don't bring those things to light, then it is hard for us to truly be self-evolved. So what I did was start researching different disorders over the years, things that I have been diagnosed with. And I've gone to therapy, but I never actually put those things into practice because I simply wasn't ready. I wasn't evolved enough. I wasn't mature enough. I was too young and my mind was in the wrong place. What I wish I had known is that where it has all seemed to really come to light for me is my stumble across the study of distorted thinking. Now, distorted thinking causes us to behave in ways that affect all aspects of our lives. For some, it's different aspects than others, but it has its effects on anybody who has developed distorted thinking through childhood trauma or some other trauma of a personal nature. Maybe losing a loved one, grief, abuse, maybe all of them. Just depends on the person. So what I discovered whenever I stumbled across distorted thinking was that I very definitely recognized the examples of some of the thoughts that I have had that have run through my head, some conscious and others just a blur of run-on sentences of the things that I have done wrong in my life or that other people do wrong, or just negative black and whites about the world around me. And that interfered in so many parts of my life, because when you view your life through a distorted lens, which is one of the descriptions that I came across that I most cared for because that really resonated with me. You begin to think in a way that is not constructive towards your health and well-being or towards anyone else's in your life. So this is very important because what I realized about myself is that I had problems in all of my relationships, from romantic to people who were friends to family, to people I would just run into on a daily basis. And I did not even realize how much I was being affected by my thoughts. And when you view things through a distorted lens, at least in my case, and you see things as negative, it made me afraid of so many things and made me feel so small and bad about myself and convinced that I was stupid, or, convinced that I could not change because I was always messing this up, or I was always, this way. And I would try and I would go for, the ultimate goal and fall far short of it because it was all or nothing thinking for me, which is another thing that if somebody were to look up distorted thoughts, that's another aspect of this that is mentioned. It's important, or it was important for me to find a site that I could really relate to, because looking up distorted thinking in general is helpful, but I had to find something that I recognized in myself in order for it to really make sense to me, because until I did, it was a concept, but not a reality in my mind. It is one thing to hear a therapist talk about how you may have distorted thinking and give you suggestions and techniques, but it is another to look it up for yourself and see something that somebody said that is almost exactly what you have thought at one point or another in your life. And once that clicks in your mind, it really helps everything to fall into place. And it is still a struggle. It is not an instant change. For me, it was not an instant change. It will always be a struggle for me to remove that distorted lens. But the awareness is what helps me. So on my journey towards evolving as a person, that discovery has meant everything to me. I still struggle. I still have my days where I am super negative, or I react to something in the moment in a way that I wish that I would not. And I still have the negative thoughts come into my head. But being aware that they are not true helps me to differentiate between the negatives and the positives that are a reality around me. And it helps me to feel so much more capable and in control of my emotions and what I can achieve on a day-to-day basis. Um, and what helped me was reminding myself daily by going back into the sites that really struck home to me and reminding myself, like having it visually in front of me. A close relationship with God has helped me as well. That is number one, because having a willing heart that leans towards the Lord, and I know that not everybody out there would agree with me, and I know that everybody has their own personal beliefs, but I believe in my Father, and I definitely feel that that makes all the difference for me as well, because that willingness in my heart to lean towards His Word has given me the willingness to love myself and to love others, even if I did not have the tools. So the Lord gave me a willing heart, and my mind, looking up facts and putting the research in and the effort, gave me the ability, if that makes any sense. And so what I started with was, like I said, visually reminding myself of some of the thoughts that I have in my head and the reality of of what is actually taking place around me. And it's not that you're not aware of reality. It's not like, I'm somebody who hallucinates and has a different, I'm not seeing aliens or monsters around me or ghosts or people that don't exist or not talking to me. But what people don't understand is the thoughts that are negative in your head, the words that come into your head, have every bit as much of an impact on your perception of reality as if you were to look around and see atomic bombs dropping to the ground around you. And that is because those of us who have experienced trauma are often easily triggered to experience trauma all over again when we have emotions that are related to the trauma that we have already endured. And when we get thrown back into that PTSD state, um, then it is very easy to be overcome by our negative thoughts. And our negative thoughts, they're actually kind of a trigger for each other. Like, you can have negative thoughts, which leads you to fear, which leads you back into that traumatized state, or you can allow yourself to become easily traumatized by something that happens around you because you're taking it personally onto yourself. Other people's reactions, other situations that you cannot control. And yet, as a child, somehow, whenever you were experiencing these things, or even as an adult, you felt powerless, you felt out of control. And so you believed um, that somehow you could have changed what happened to you. And you allowed yourself to become ruled by those emotions. And the trick to being the best version of yourself is to try to realize that in this life there are so many things that happen that are out of our control, good and bad, and to admit that you are powerless against those things, but that you can control your own reaction and you can actually control your own thoughts, even though it is so hard to redirect your thoughts. Gives you back the power, and that gives you the power to heal and to work on yourself. Um, I've digressed a little bit because my point, what I was trying to stay on track with, was um, the steps that it took and that I will continue to take so that I can be successful in my own right, whatever it is I decide to do. If I want to work on being just more of a helpful person, a better listener, somebody who is kinder in my reactions to others, even whenever I get hurt, how to be dignified in my response whenever somebody makes me angry, and yet have boundaries and be able to stand up for myself. Um, all of those things are impacted by your thoughts and your reaction to them. So the steps that I take, like I said, are giving myself visual reminders, um, reading the word, and praying, and surrounding myself with people that I love who are more positive. And you're not always going to get that in your immediate family and friends. Um, but if you can look at some of your thoughts and you can recognize that they are reacting out of some of the same emotions that you have experienced, whether right or wrong, that maybe they have some form of PTSD as well, or distorted lens, because that is becoming more and more common for people today in general in this world that we live in, because trauma is everywhere. And I think that's what we need to realize. So if you can recognize that other people are not trying to hurt you, even when they react in ways that you do not approve of or that you don't understand, um, that will help you to have a more loving spirit towards them, which in turn gives you the ability to have reactions you can be proud of and where you can love yourself. And all of those things just flow together and create more positivity. And um, in order to keep that feeling, for me, I have to, like I said, keep reminding myself. If I let even a couple days go by where I do not read the word, or I do not remind myself, hey, this is distorted thinking, let me really think about this right now, this is what I'm really believing about myself or somebody else, to look up those kind of thoughts and to um, maybe even write it out if I have the time, and just look at it objectively instead of emotionally makes all the difference for me. But it is something that is a struggle. It is hard. It is not something where, a lot of people will put a little bit of that work in, as I did for years, off and on. And then I would think, as they think, oh, I'm cured. I feel better now. I am a better person. I have this realization. No. As human beings, we get so caught up in our daily lives and the things that are going on around us and overextend ourselves so much that we lose the knowledge we have gained about ourselves if we do not stay in touch with ourselves. Um, so, those are just some of my thoughts that I have had on how I want to improve my influence on myself and on others, and how I want to, as I said, evolve as a person. Um, Stay tuned for more. Thanks.